Steve Bousquet never left Putnam, Connecticut. Sure, he overcame his early reluctance to board a plane and took family trips throughout this country and abroad, but his love of this community and its history was really the basis of all that he contributed and accomplished in his all too short time with us.
He was very unassuming, a very unassuming man, very non-pretentious man, and but sincere. He was just really sincere. He had a real magic with connecting with people, all walks of life, quickly. He really was a very compassionate man, I think, and kind.
He spent his early years on Farrow Street, where he grew up with his siblings, Jerry, Mike, and David. The third child of Gerard, better known as Bud, and Myrtle, was born in 1946. It was a short walk up the hill and down through the woods to Israel Putnam School for his educational beginning. Sports were always a major focus as Steve made his way through the grades. And when participation in team sports began to wane, he would gravitate to fishing and golf to fill the void in later years. Little League and junior high basketball were forerunners to a high school career that saw him excel in 3 major sports and still manage to earn a letter in golf. While he more than held his own on the football field and the baseball diamond at Putnam High School, basketball was certainly more than just a passing interest during the winter season. He was named to the Quinebaug Valley Conference All-Tournament basketball team as a junior and a senior, and Most Outstanding Alumni Association athlete, also as a senior. And while it is hard to imagine that he had much downtime, he also served on the student council and was the editor of his senior yearbook. Following graduation from UConn in 1970, he briefly taught at St. James School in Danielson and enlisted in the National Guard before launching his career as a successful businessman. The first Bousquet's appliance store was in Putnam. An expanded business followed in Danielson. Now there are stores in 3 locations as son Jeff carries the appliance store torch. College graduation wasn't the only highlight of 1970. Marriage to high school sweetheart Katie Wise was another milestone. In the early 1980s, the Bousquets added to the family, first with Jennifer and then Jeffrey. But he didn't let go of the sports bug. He became an outstanding softball pitcher on a team which traveled throughout southern New England.
We were playing for Wise's Market, and Steve was always in the middle of things because of being the pitcher of our team. But the thing was, he was competitive. We were all competitive, but win or lose, we all could have a good time after. And we molded as a unit. We had great chemistry. We had different players come along at different times, but each time Steve was kind of the kingpin on the mound for us. I guess eventually it was more than just sports that made Steve Bousquet what he was.
Golf remained a pastime, both as a participant and a promoter of the Day Kimball Hospital and Congregational Church fundraising links events. However, the passion was always fishing. Early rising and lengthy trips to the top fishing spots with friends was a must on his calendar, and the annual ice fishing derby at the Valley Springs Club was a not-to-miss event for so many. To promote his appliance endeavors, he came up with a unique advertising idea. It was weekly personal appearances with Pete Regis on Friday morning to exchange barbs and local tidbits with Gary O. Putnam's past was an early occasional mention and soon became a staple as locals called in to offer their recollections or answer questions which Steve threw out as if he were casting for bass, and eventually it evolved into Remember When. It still continues today, with many of the regular callers still contributing. This was also the start of a lifelong friendship between Steve and Gary that spread to family outings dinners, fundraising, and most assuredly, early morning fishing trips. While Steve was generous throughout his business years, it was his extraordinary fundraising skills and community involvement that endeared him to so many throughout this part of Windham County.
He always had a great idea for a fundraiser. He was always aware of needs in the community. And for a guy who worked so hard at such a successful business, and it was a busy store, he was always paying attention and always very aware of needs and people who needed help in the community.
His giving and fundraising efforts knew no bounds and extended to all ages and faiths. From Little League to senior citizens, St. Mary's to the Congregational Church, assisting low-income families to increased police protection and countless others that so often were done without fanfare.
A love for your community, and giving back and paying it forward. When you are blessed, when you're blessed with means and success in life, you got to pay that forward. You got to give that stuff back. And that's a timeless lesson. And I think I would hope that would be the takeaway from anyone who would see Steve's plaque, read about him on the Wall of Honor.
He maintained membership in the Elks, Danielson Better Business Bureau, Chamber of Commerce, and served on the Putnam Recreation Commission. In 2010, he received the prestigious Paul Harris Award from Putnam Rotary, the Northeastern Humanitarian of the Year Award from the Chamber of Commerce, and Citizen of the Year from the Putnam Grange and Lions Clubs in both Putnam and Danielson. He relaxed at his home on Quartic Pond and always allowed time for his gardening skills and family gatherings. As he lay in the hospital bed, waiting for the inevitable, he made Jen bring her laptop so that he could check on his final fundraising effort to procure a dog for a disabled boy. One of his final family orders: just make sure that you get that boy his dog. His dedication to family and philanthropic efforts brought hundreds to his memorial service. On that occasion, it was offered that Steve was an ordinary man who did extraordinary things, not for himself, but for others. And that legacy will live on, not only in his grateful community, but in the family he leaves behind: Katie, Jen, Jeff, and grandsons Jonathan and Benjamin.
He had a humble spirit about him, a giving spirit, but he never did it for his own recognition. He did it always to help other people. I think he's been a great choice and well-deserved, well-deserved. I wish he was here to see it because we'd have a hell of a party after.